All right. Good evening, everyone, again. So now we are going to start, yeah, with the class, with the session. All right. So first of all, I want you to ask you some questions about the last week. Can you remember what we have done, what we did last week? Can you tell
Yes, sir. The car sentence.
me? Yeah. All right. Any other one?
Determiners.
Yes. Determiners. All right. What else? What else?
Sir, good evening.
Good evening, good evening. So I was asking you, how much can you remember about the last class? Your partner said it structured the sentence, determiners, what else?
About nouns
Sure.
and sound.
That's it. The noun, no? Specifically, the noun phrase, right? The last class, first we started talking about the major constituents of sentence. When we make a sentence, we also talk about the kernel sentence. Can you remember about this term, kernel sentence? What was it?
Two sentences in one phrase.
Kernel? Not exactly, not exactly. Kernel sentence. Can you remember about it?
Yes, teacher is an active voice.
Yeah, a kernel sentence is in an active voice. Yes, this is one characteristic of a kernel sentence. Yeah, but what is it exactly? No.
It has only one verb.
It has only one verb, okay? So you gave me two characteristics. It is always in an active voice. It has just one verb.
It carries only one idea.
Excellent. It carries just one idea, only one idea. So it is the simplest, remember, it is the simplest sentence, the simplest structure to make a sentence. This is the kernel sentence, remember? And it's composed by a noun phrase and a verb phrase, right? And then we were talking about the noun phrase. No, the noun phrase is composed by a noun, that is the principal part, and some words which help this noun to expand, to give more information about it, all right? And as you told me, we have seen the determiners, no? We also seen some words that goes with the noun, right? And we compose, this, the noun phrase, yeah? Yes?
An interjection, teacher.
Yes, that's it. You can use also an interjection to make this kernel sentence, all right? So don't forget about this composition. So we were talking about the noun phrase last week. Now we are going to pass to the other major constituent of the sentence, that is the verb phrase, all right? So I'm going to share it now. Yeah, so here we're going to talk about this. The verb phrase. Yeah? So what is the verb phrase? First, we're going to give a definition. What is a verb phrase? So a verb phrase, remember, is the portion of a sentence. It's part of a sentence that contains both the verb, this is the head, the principal part of the verb phrase is the verb, and either a direct or indirect object. Okay, so these are the first phrase. All right, this is the verb phrase. Is the portion or part of a sentence that contains a verb plus a direct or indirect object. But sometimes we just make the verb phrase just with a verb. Then we're going to analyze this. All right, so don't forget about this definition. Okay, it's part of the sentence composed by a verb, that is the head, the principal part, and an object. Could be direct, indirect, or both. You could use both too. Now, Look at the example here. You have, this is a simple sentence, and you have the author is writing a new book. So here you have this, is writing is the verb, a new book is the object, all right? So notice the composition of the verb phrase, is writing a new book. So first you have the verb, that is writing, yeah? Here you have two verbs, no, one auxiliary and the other principal of the main verb. And then we have an object, all right? So here you can notice clearly what is the composition of a verb phrase, all right? The verb, that is the head, and then you have an object, all right? So notice here again, this is the verb phrase, all right? Don't forget it. All of this is a verb phrase, not just the verb. All this is writing a new book is the verb phrase. And it's composed by a verb, is writing, no? And you have here a new book that is the object. Don't forget about it. The verb plus the object. So you have the verb phrase, all right? Is writing a new book. So this is the composition of a verb phrase. Also here we could say that the verb phrase is the predicate. Now remember that we have these two parts in a sentence too, the subject and the predicate. So here we can say that a predicate is the sentence or a clause. In this case, there will always be a helping verb in addition to the verb. So here you have this, a helping verb. What is the helping verb? Is, in this case, is the verb be, because we are making a tense, no, a special tense, that is a present continuous tense. So in order to make this present continuous tense, we need two verbs, the helping verb or the auxiliary verb and the main verb. Notice how we are making the, the verb phrase. So in the verb could be formed by a helping verb and a main verb. Yeah? In this case, not all the time, but in this case, we can make the verb in this way. Carlos, do you want to say something? Because you raise your hand? No? Please be careful with pressing the icons. The icon, when you say raise your hand, I can see it. And maybe I could notice that you want to participate. So be careful doing that, please, all right? Okay, so here we have this in the verb phrase. Don't forget it.
Excuse me, teacher, I'm fine. That's my mistake, sorry.
Okay, don't worry. All right. Yeah, okay. So here we have to continue, and we are going to talk about more about verbs. What are the verbs? Verbs are words which demonstrate an action, like sing, dance, smell, talk, and eat. Also, verbs serves as a link between the subject of the verb and information about the subject. So notice here the two uses of the verb. They represent actions, yes, like singing, dancing, smelling, talking, and eating. So these are actions. But they also serve as a link, as a connection between the subject and the verb, and an information about the subject, okay? So let's see here. Notice here. She smells the pizza. So here is the verb smells is an action, right? This is an action. He appears on a screen as an actor. Again, here you have an action verbs. What about linking verbs? Notice here the difference, yeah? Linking verbs. What about the linking verbs? The wet dog smells awful. It smells again, right? But in the first one represents an action. It's active, yeah? It's an action. But the second one is not an action. You're describing, notice here the link, this verb is the link between the subject of the verb and information about the subject. So what is the subject? The subject is the wet dog, right? This is the subject. And what is the information about the subject? Oh, that a wet dog, awful, smells awful, right? So you are giving some information, extra information about the dog. And you use the verb smell as a link. Here is not an action, right? Here is not an action. So now here the verb smells is a link. It's a linking verb. You are connecting the adjective that is awful. And remember that the adjectives qualifies nouns. So here this adjective is qualifying the noun, the subject that is the dog. And you say that a wet dog smells awful. So notice the difference. Action and then the same verb is as a linking verb. Here you could say it also there's a stay verb, no? So we have these two major types of verbs, no? Actions and stay verbs. And when it stay serves as a connector, as a linker, right, between the subject and the information that we have related to the subject. What about the other? Notice the other one, appears. Let's pass to the verb appears. Appears, here, just a minute, I'm going to meet some students. All right, yeah. So the verb appears on a screen as an actor. Here represents an action, but the second one, the second appears, Tony appears angry. Notice here, it's again a linking verb because angry is the adjective and it's an information about Tony. So you are qualifying Tony, you're describing Tony. So you say Tony appears angry. So this is a link. Notice appears here is like a link connecting the subject and the information that we have about the subject. All right? Yes, is it clear? These kind of verbs, how we are going to use the verbs? Yes?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
All right, okay, so don't forget about how can we use a verb as an action verb or as a linker that most of the time are the states, no? All right, now we are going to continue with the other part related to the verbs, and we are going to analyze the kinds of verbs, types of verbs, all right? The verb phrase has two functional parts, two major parts, and we have seen on the previous slides. One of the parts is the auxiliary verb. As you know, we have different auxiliary verbs, no? Modals such as can, may, will, should. Then we have perfect forms, no? Have or has, no? Or had, if it is past perfect. And then it is followed by the ed participle, no? Ed in regular and participle irregular. No, we have two, regular and irregular participle. So this is a second form of auxiliary verbs. Then we have progressive forms of be. We are going to use the verb be, no? By the ing, the past participle, present participle. Remember, the ing is called the present participle. The ed or en, no, this is the past participle. Yeah, we have two participles, the past participle and the present participle. All right, the present participle is the ing. Yeah, we commonly use this as the ing, no? So maybe you don't know the syntactical name. The syntactical name of this verb, or this form of verb, is present participle, all right? So we are going to use the verb be as an auxiliary verb, all right? Could be in present, am, is, are, could be in past, was, were, no? And so on. Then we have the passive forms of be again, all right? Forms of be again, followed again by the past participle. Ed Hello, hello, hello. Can you listen to me?
Now, yes,
Yes.
teacher.
Oh, okay, but
Sorry, I don't know
before
what
was
happened with.
very awful.
Yes, I don't know what happened with the connection. Soon throw me away. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share it again. Oh, what happened here? Oh, just a minute, please. Oh, just a minute, just a minute. Yeah. Okay. So as we were talking about, we have these two components, the auxiliary verbs, modals, perfect, progressive, passive. Then we have also the support auxiliary, no, forms of do, followed by a base form, no? Here we have this support auxiliary. This is you use in order to emphasize some instructions, no? For example, when you say, I love you. No, this is a simple sentence. I love you. But you want to emphasize that you really love that person, so you say, I do love you. Notice that you use here do as an intensifier. No, it's a supporting auxiliary, and you use here the base form of the verb, right? So here you have the different auxiliary verbs. The other component of a verb phrase is the lexical verb. The lexical verb, commonly known as main verb, no? The principal verb. So here we have these two components of a verb phrase, the auxiliary verb and the lexical verb. That is the main verb, the principal verb, all right? So don't forget about these two functional parts of a verb phrase, all right? So here we have again, notice this table, this diagram. We have the lexical verbs can act as main verbs. Oh, sorry. Its meaning is clear and identifiable. The examples, eat, read, cook, no? So we have this. And the modal verbs, they can only act as auxiliaries. Remember that we have this, auxiliaries, no? Just a minute, okay. And then we have the other, that is the primary verbs. This is the supporting verbs, no? They can have two functions, as a main verbs or as an auxiliary verbs. Here you have be, have, and do. Notice that we have these three. Remember, lexical verb, modal verbs, and primary verbs, no? Remember that the primary verbs could be the auxiliary verbs or a lexical one, no? Do, have, be, no? They can act as a main verb or auxiliary verbs, all right? So we have these kind of verbs. Remember, when we make the verb phrase, we are going to use these verbs. Sometimes just the lexical verbs, sometimes with modal or auxiliaries or primary verbs, sometimes both, no? So we are going to use both, okay? Now, today we are going to emphasize on the lexical verbs and the auxiliary verbs. Let's analyze more precisely what are they. Lexical verbs are the ones that belong to an indefinitely large, large general vocabulary of the language, right? You can have a lot of lexical verbs, a huge quantity of lexical verbs. Here you have, for example, run, eat, seem, explain, recycle, shatter, prepare, depend. So we have a lot, all right? We have a lot. Oh, shall. Oh, Bethy. Shall is similar to say will. Yeah, will. This is a future auxiliary. That's good, Gabriel. Yes, Gabriel answered that. No, shall is similar to will. Here, shall is more used in British English, all right? Not in American English. But now it's disappearing also, shall. Nowadays, British people use the most will, all right? But shall is also used with the I, we, and they, no more. Auxiliary verbs, by contrast, remember, notice here the contrast, are a special and very restricted set of verbs. So we have a small quantity of auxiliary verbs. We don't have a lot, all right? And here you have be, have, and do, which also can be lexical, as we have seen before, and can, could, will, would, should, may, might, must, and need. So they are the famous modal verbs, no? So these are known also as a modal verb, all right? So don't forget about the difference between lexical and auxiliary verb. Lexical, we have a huge quantity, all right? A great amount of lexical verbs. But auxiliary verbs, we have a very restricted set of verbs, a very restricted group of verbs, no? The primary, that could be lexical and auxiliary, be, have, and do. And the modal verbs that we have here, can, could, will, would, shall, should, may, might, must, and need, no? So we have all of these modal verbs, all right? Now, the next aspect that we are going to talk about is the composition of a verb phrase must contain a lexical verb and it may contain auxiliary verbs. And so it depends, no? It depends on the tense you're using. Also, if you're making an affirmative sentence or negative sentence or a question or interrogative sentence. Notice that in the English language, in order to make questions or negatives, we are going to use auxiliaries, right? The section that is related to this rule is the verb be, no, in present or past. But on the other ways, we are going to use, in order to make questions, in order to make negative sentences, we're going to use auxiliaries, all right? That's why here in English use a lot of auxiliaries, all right? So here we have this. Diana plays the piano. Diana played the piano. Notice that here, these two sentences, the verb phrase, the head, is just a lexical verb, play. The first one is in the present simple, and the second one is in the past simple, all right? But just a lexical verb. What about this one? Anders is explaining his generalization. Notice here, we have both the auxiliary or primary, because we have the verb be. Be is here the auxiliary, no? It's not the main. The main verb is explaining, right? So be is the auxiliary. But be, remember that is also used as a main verb, no? So that's why we call this primary verb, all right? But here in this case is an auxiliary verb, all right? The main verb is explaining. Another example, Maggie should have recycled those bottles. Notice that here we have the modal verb, should, no? This is the modal verb, should, plus the present perfect auxiliary, in this case, have, no? This is a modal perfect, no? We call this structure a modal perfect. So we use the modal verb plus the auxiliary verb of the present perfect. In this case, have, no has, because you have the modal verb. And then the past participle form of the lexical verb. So we have two auxiliaries and one lexical. And notice how we are going to compose the verb phrase, exactly the verb, no? You can use a lexical, like in the two first sentences, no? Plays, played, no auxiliaries, all right? And the other one that we have with auxiliary, that is the verb be, is explaining, is the main verb or the lexical verb. And is also called a primary verb because it could be used as a main, as an auxiliary, right? And the third sentence, we have a modal perfect. This is a modal perfect structure when we use two auxiliaries. One is the modal and the other is the present perfect auxiliary plus the lexical verb or the main verb in the past participle form. No, this is regular, so you just add ed, all right? So notice how we are going to compose the verb, all right? Oh, the internet. I don't know what happened with the internet today. Yeah, can you watch the slide? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Please
Okay.
let me know if you have some problems because here says that my connection not so good. Yeah. Please tell me if you have some problems watching or listening to me. All right. Okay. So we are going to continue. The other example is something similar. Now we have three. Notice we have three auxiliary verbs. Notice here the three auxiliary verbs. First the modal, then the present perfect, and then we have the lexical verb with the ing. No, this is a modal perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous plus a modal verb. Will may have been preparing his lecture. Notice the composition, no? From the basic form that is the lexical, just the lexical verb, plays or played. Then we add an auxiliary, be or do or does, no, as you want. You can use a lot of auxiliary verbs. Then we have two auxiliary verbs, a modal verb plus a present perfect auxiliary. And the third may have been, we have three auxiliaries, no? May the modal, have the present perfect, and been is the verb be, but in present perfect progressive auxiliary, all right? Here you use this structure. Notice how we are going to compose the verb, all right? With auxiliaries and lexical verbs or main verbs. No, you maybe know this verb as a main verb, no? Maybe you don't know the lexical one, but this is the syntactical name, no? All right, so here we have to this. Notice this table, yeah? Please focus on this table. So this is a composition, auxiliary verb plus a main verb. You have the verb phrase. Auxiliary verb, for example, you want to make into future, will, the main verb or lexical verb, eat. So we have will eat. The other has, present perfect auxiliary, taken is the main verb. So you have has taken is the verb phrase. Then you have is as an auxiliary, no? Is as an auxiliary verb, main verb running, so the verb phrase is running. Been is the auxiliary verb, notice too. Then you have feeling, that is the main verb, and you have been feeling, present perfect continuous, right? This is the verb phrase. And finally, with a modal, must, then you have the lexical or main verb talk, and you have must talk. So you have the verb phrase. No, this is the verb phrase. Notice again how we are going to make, yeah, how we are going to make the verb phrase using auxiliary verbs and using the main verb, no? But don't forget that the most important part in a verb phrase is the main verb, the lexical verb. The auxiliary is optional, no? It depends on the situation or in the tense or the context that you're going to use it, all right? But the most important here is the main verb or lexical verb, all right? Until here, any question? No, no questions?
No question, teacher.
All right, okay, so let's continue with the other one. So today we're going to focus more on the lexical verbs. Now, as we have seen, the lexical verbs are easily identified by their morphological possibilities. So what is this? That we can use the inflections. Now, remember when we talked about morphology? Now, we talk about inflectional morphemes. Yes, can you remember? What were the inflectional morphemes? And you can see it here, right? You can see the inflectional morphemes. What are the inflectional morphemes? The S of the present simple, ing, ed,
Pass.
en. So these are inflections, all right? These are inflections. So what does it mean, inflection? This is a morphological process, no? That you are going to add a grammatical function to the verb, to the word. In this case, it's a verb. So if you write yes, oh yeah, you can recognize that this verb is in present simple, third person singular, right? Just adding the letter S. So this S has a meaning. That's why we call that is a morpheme, right? So this S represent or has a grammatical function. That's why we say that this is inflectional morphemes. So to lexical verbs, we can use a lot of morphological forms or inflections, like the present simple with the S, the ing, we want to make the present continuous, no? Then the ed, we want to make the past simple regular verbs, or past participle regular verbs, or en in the past participle irregular verbs, no? Break, broken, take, taken, driven. Notice that you use the en to make past participle. So remember, the lexical verbs take these forms. You cannot do that with the auxiliary verbs, right? They are not inflections, all right? So they have just a form, just a base form. But the lexical verb can adapt. You can change it into present, into past, into the past participle, present participle. Yeah, remember the ing is called the present participle, all right? So don't forget about the lexical verbs. They take verbal inflections, all right? So as you can see here, right? Play, plays, playing, played. So here you have the inflections. Remember, we call this the inflections. Inflectional morphemes. The S for the present simple, third person singular, the ing, and we made the present participle, the ed that we made the past simple or past participle form or regular verbs, no? Because in irregular we have another way, another morpheme. All right, so here another example, writes, writing, written. Notice this is irregular, right? Writes, present simple, writing, present participle. Remember, the ing is present participle. Don't get confused with the present continuous. Present continuous is the tense, all right? The grammatical tense. But what is the form of the verb that we use in the present continuous? The present participle. You know, as I told you, as the ing, you know, because to students we say, no, yes, you make the present continuous with the verb be plus a verb plus ing. We don't say to students that you use the verb be plus the present participle. No, we don't do that, right? But it's advisable to know the syntactical name, no? This is a present participle. Remember, the ing is the present participle form of the verb. This is an inflection. And this is an inflectional morpheme. All right? Okay, now, here we have to continue with the other one. A general point to note in identifying categories, one that applies particularly to verbs, is that words can belong to more than one category. This is so important to know because sometimes we use one word and we just know, yeah, this word is a verb. But in English, remember, one word can have different functions. One word could be a verb, could be an adjective, or could be an adverb. No, for example, a simple example to this is like. You know, like is a verb, right? Like. What other function has this word? Do you know it? Like. We know that.
Comparative. Comparative.
We use it in order to compare, and here you change the type of word. Like now is not a verb. Now like is an adverb. When you say, oh, you're like your mother. Notice here, you are like your mother. So you're comparing one person to another person. And like here is not a verb. Okay. Like is an adverb. Another example, book. The word book. Book, oh yeah, teacher, libro, yes, it's an object, book. But book here is a noun, but book is also a verb. When you check in or register in a hotel, right? And you reserve, for example, a room, or maybe when you go to a restaurant, no? And you reserve a table. So you can say, oh, I want to book a table on Friday. Notice book, here is a verb, it's not a noun. So it is important to know this, right? In English, some words can have different categories, different functions. Interest, for example, here you have one word. Interest is certainly a verb, but here you have these inflections, no? Interest in the present simple, interesting, interested. So Miley's here, interesting. Notice here, interested is used here as a verb. Maybe you know that, oh, teacher, interesting, interest is an adjective. Yes, but it's also a verb. Here, for example, this word is used as a verb, not as an adjective, right? Miles' hair interested him. All right? Now, let's continue looking at this word. Another example. Its great architectural interest did not strike him immediately. What is the use of interest here? It is a verb, it is a noun, if it is an adjective, what is that? What is the function of the word interest?
Adjective.
Adjective? Sure.
The noun.
Yes, that's it. It's a noun. How do we know that there is a noun? How? How do we know it? How do we know that this word is a noun? It's easy. Maybe, no, sometimes when we want to know the type of word, and we have seen this in morphology, no? How do we know that type of word? Because of their position, remember. Oh, please, microphone. Oh, yeah, I'm going to silence everybody. Yeah, okay, so here, notice the position of the word interest is after an adjective, right? Great architectural, it's an adjective. It's an adjective phrase. We have two adjectives. And then after this word, we have an auxiliary verb. Didn't, did not. So that's why this is a noun, because it's preceded by adjectives and followed by an auxiliary verb or verbs. So this is a noun. Notice in the previous sentence, it wasn't a verb. Now, it is a noun. Let's pass to the other one. John's interests are rather eccentric. Here, what is the function of this word? What type of word is this?
Noun.
Uh-huh. This is a noun again, no? Because it's before the verb be, are. John's interest, but this is a compound noun, no? Using the genitive, the apostrophe S, possession, no? This is like a compound noun because it's connected with John's, no? With John's. John's interests are rather eccentric. So, as you told me, these are nouns. Interests here are nouns. Now, let's pass to the other ones. A very interesting plan was proposed. What is here? Or the other one. He wasn't very interested in the bean production. What is the function? Yes.
Adjective.
Excellent. That's it. They are adjectives. All right? So notice, it's so important, please, to know the different types of words. One word could function as a verb, as a noun, as an adjective. Notice, interest could be a verb, could be a noun, could be an adjective. All right? So in English happen this, no? Sometimes when we are looking for somewhere, looking up some words in a dictionary, we just stay on the first one, no? Oh yeah, it's a verb, and we close it fast, immediately, and we don't check more. It's very important to check more because one word could have a lot of functions. It can have, it could be a verb, it could be an adjective, it could be an adverb, and so on, all right? So you have to analyze this carefully. Okay, now, Let's pass to the other one. So we talked about the verb phrase, the lexical, how we are going to have these words, the different categories. And now we are going to pass to some complements that the lexical verbs have. All right? So let's see it. The complements of lexical verbs. What is next? After the lexical verb, what are we going to have? Let's see this example. Feel dreads affectionate cats. Dreads is similar to say to feel afraid, to feel scary. Yeah? So this person is scared. Yeah. When this person is close to cats, he feels scared. He's scary. All right. Dreads. Yeah? Don't forget about the meaning of dreads. So feel dreads affectionate cats. So you have the verb. No, you have the verb phrase. Remember, all of this is the verb phrase. Dreads affectionate cats is the verb phrase. Affectionate cats, it's a noun phrase. Remember what we talked the last class, all right? We were talking about the noun phrase, okay? So we could use adjectives. Yeah, we could use adjectives and then a noun. Remember that the major part in a noun phrase, it's the noun. And we can add any other words. Something similar happens with a verb. We could use just a verb and we can add other complements to the verb. In this case, we're adding a noun phrase. So we have the verb, that is the lexical, yeah, dreads is a lexical verb. And then we have as a complement, a noun phrase. All right? So here we have a relationship, okay, between the verb and the noun phrase. And we call this relation a head complement relation. Head, remember, the verb is the head. Head means the principal part in a verb phrase. So the verb is the head and the noun phrase is the complement. So there is a relation here between the verb and the noun phrase, the head of the verb phrase and its complement, all right? And we call here this a head complement relationship, all right? So don't forget about it. So here we are going to add some noun phrases to the verb, lexical verb. Remember, we're talking about just the lexical verbs. We can add a complement, and this complement could be a noun phrase, all right? Now, here you have more examples, no? Here you have the girls carry water. Carry is the verb, the lexical verb. And then we have a noun, that is a noun phrase. Remember, a noun phrase could be formed by just a noun, or maybe you can add some elements to the noun, right? Another example, Juan threw the ball. Again, a simple sentence when we have the verb, the lexical verb, plus a noun phrase. Now here you add an article, a determiner, right? That is the article, it's a determiner, and we add to the noun. So we have a noun phrase. I caught a cold. Again, a lexical verb plus a noun phrase. Article again, indefinite article plus the noun, no? Cold, remember it also used as an adjective, no? But here is used as a noun. She loves rainbows. Again, you have the lexical verb that is loves, and rainbows that is the complement. No? It's a complement of the lexical verb, and this is a noun phrase, or a noun more specifically, right? And finally, we have Lila conveyed the message. Again, conveyed is the lexical verb, and the noun phrase that is the message, all right? So notice here that we could add this complement to a lexical verb. We can add noun phrases or nouns to the verb. So this is the structure, right? This is the structure, verb plus a noun phrase, all right? Look at here. Here we have another verb, sunbathe. What is the meaning of sunbathe? Sunbathe. Do you know it?
Exposed to the sun to get a
Baño de
dark
sol.
color.
Excellent. No? When you go to the beach, no, you're lying on the sand and you are exposed to the sun, right? This sentence is correct. What do you think? Feel, sunbathe, affectionate cats. Remember that we changed just a verb. In the first one was dreads, no? That he feels scary with cats. Now we change dreads to sunbathe. Is it possible to make these sentence?
No, teacher, it's incorrect.
It's incorrect.
Why?
No.
It isn't possible to that feels added the cat.
Oh,
No meaning.
that's it. So it means that we are not going to use a noun phrase with this verb. We don't need it. We just write a sentence with a verb, no more. Feel sunbathe. We don't need a noun phrase. Notice here, we don't need a noun phrase with this verb. So here we are going to have these two types of verbs. Some verbs are going to be followed by noun phrase, but on the other side, other verbs are not going to be followed by noun phrase, just the verb. You don't need a noun phrase here, all right? Feel sunbathe, no more. So the meaning of the verb is complete, all right? So we don't need a complement. So notice here the structure. Verb plus noun phrase? No. This verb doesn't need a noun phrase. All right? Notice the two structures. Some verbs are followed by noun phrase, and some verbs are not followed by noun phrase. They don't need that part. All right? They don't need that part to have a complete meaning. The verb, not the sentence, the verb. Yeah? So notice these two different structures. So the correct sentence is this: feel, sunbathe, no more. All right, no more. So notice these two types. Yeah. Another examples of these verbs or these kind of verbs are they jumped. You don't need here a noun phrase. The dog ran. She sang. A light was shining. Or they died. Notice here that we don't need, yeah? We don't need a complement, a noun phrase, okay? So again, some verbs are going to be followed by a noun phrase. They need a noun phrase, but the other verbs, as you can see here, they don't need a noun phrase. So the structure here is with no noun phrase, all right? Just the verb, okay? Just the verb, the lexical verb. Remember, we're talking about lexical verbs, okay? So here you don't need a noun phrase. So when we analyze these two subcategories, because here we're talking about subcategory, because the major categories are auxiliaries and lexical. And the lexical are subdivided, that's why here says subcategories, yeah? Subcategories of lexical. The lexical verbs are subdivided in these ones. Transitive, this is the first one. Intransitive, detransitive, intensive, complex transitive, and finally, prepositional. Have you heard these terms before? Transitive, intransitive, detransitive, intensive, complex transitive, and prepositional. Have you heard these terms before? Do you have any idea what they mean? Yes, no? Oh, don't be afraid, huh? Don't be afraid. All right. Okay, Indira says no, yeah. But we talked about two of these subcategories in the previous example. Remember, some verbs are followed by the noun phrase, and some verbs are followed with no noun phrase. No, you don't need noun phrase. So we are going to talk about this. Let's start. We are going to remember these six subcategories. Remember, these are subcategories or lexical verbs. Yeah? Lexical. We're talking about the lexical or main verbs. Yeah? We're talking about the lexical or main verbs. Okay? Transitive, intransitive, detransitive, intensive, complex transitive, and prepositional. Let's start here with the first one, transitive verb. What is a transitive verb? It's a verb which requires a single noun phrase to complement it. So the previous one, remember? Yeah, a verb plus a noun phrase. These verbs are called transitive verbs. Yeah, don't forget about this name. Transitive verbs are verbs which requires or needs a noun phrase to complement it. They are a complement of the lexical verb. All right, so we call this transitive verb. The noun phrase that complements a transitive verb is said to us the direct object. Here you have another term, direct object. So the noun phrase is called a direct object. This is the function of the noun phrase in the sentence. It works as a direct object. Notice here again, the same sentence. This is the last sentence that we have analyzed. No? Phil dreads affectionate cats. So what is the composition? Again, dreads affectionate cats is the verb phrase, right? This is the verb phrase. So this verb phrase is composed by two parts, no? The verb, that is the lexical, plus a noun phrase. Yeah, don't forget, here you have a relationship, all right? So dreads requires, needs a noun phrase to have a complete meaning, all right? To have a complete meaning, this verb needs a complement. And this complement is a noun phrase. And the noun phrase here is the direct object. The function of the noun phrase here in the sentence is as a direct object. So we have a person who does the action, that is Phil, and someone or something, in this case the animal, which receives. Remember, this is the direct object. It's a person, a thing, or animal which receive the action. That's what we call direct object, all right? Direct object, a person who does the action, that is feel, an action, that is dreads, and the animal which receives, no, or animals, cats, because here is in plural, the animals, in this case the cats, which receives the action. So that's why we call this a direct object. Yeah, so notice here, transitive verbs are verbs which take direct objects, which take noun phrases. They need a noun phrase or a direct object to complement it. All right? So these are the transitive verbs. Yeah? Don't forget it. Also, we can use not just exactly a noun phrase. We could use pronouns. But tell me, which of these two columns is the correct one? Here we have two kind of pronouns, right? Which is the correct? The first one or the second one?
The first.
The first one.
The first one.
First.
Why?
Object pronouns.
Excellent. Object. Notice, that's why the name. Object pronouns, because they function or they work as a direct object. That's why the name. Object pronouns. All right? And what about the second one? Why are they not correct? Why is not possible to say Phil dreads she or Phil dreads he? Why not? Is there any reason?
Yes.
What is the reason? Why is not possible to write she, he, we, they after dreads?
They are subject pronouns. No object are not.
They are excellent. They are personal pronouns or subject pronouns. So they are not object. The function of this word is not as an object. The function of these words, I, she, he, we, they, is as a subject. So that's why it's not possible to use, yeah? It's not possible to use here, yeah, these words in this place, right? This is incorrect. So we use after verbs, no? This is a rule, no? After verbs, as a complement, we are going to use object pronouns. Me, her, him, us, them. We use object pronouns. We don't use subject pronouns. So notice the transitive verbs could take a noun phrase or they could take also object pronouns. Yeah, both. You can complement a transitive verb with a noun phrase or using pronouns. In this case, object pronouns. All right? Now, here you have this tree diagram. Now notice that tree diagram, how we are going to decompose the sentence. Yeah, feel, it's a noun phrase, just made with the noun, yeah, feel, but it's a noun phrase because a sentence is composed by a noun phrase and a verb phrase. But in this case, the noun phrase is just a noun, no? A proper noun. And in the verb phrase, notice it's composed by a verb that in this case is transitive. That's why we have here transitive. Then you have a noun phrase, NP noun phrase, that is affectionate cats. All right? So don't forget about this diagram, how we are going to decompose the components of a sentence using transitive verbs. Remember, what is a transitive verb? It's a verb which takes an object or noun phrases. Yeah? Don't forget about it, the transitive verbs. Now let's pass to another topic here that we call the intransitive verbs. What is this? Can you tell me? Do you have an idea? We have seen it. Transitive verbs which take objects. Intransitive? Yeah, it's the opposite. So it means that we, or these verbs. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you well. So it means we are not going to use
An object pronoun.
We are not going to use objects. They are not followed by noun phrases. No noun phrases, no objects. All right? This is the examples that we have seen before, right? Some verbs followed by a noun phrase, and some verbs which are not followed by noun phrases. And the verbs which are not followed by noun phrases are called intransitive verbs. So it means that they don't require any further constituent in the VP. They don't need a complement. All right? They don't need a complement. They can stand alone. They don't need a complement to have a complete meaning, the verb. Yeah? So here we have intransitive means has and needs no complements. Yeah? They don't need or they don't have complement. Since an intransitive verb requires no further element to form a complete predicate, an intransitive verb counts as a complete VP or verb phrase in its own right. No, as I told you, they can stand alone. They don't need a company, if you want to see that. They don't need any company. They are alone, okay? So they don't need a complement, no object. This is the difference with the transitive, and that's why your partner says they are opposite. Transitive and intransitive are opposite because the transitive take objects, intransitive no objects. Now this is in a simple way. The object. Omar sighed. Notice, no complement, no objects, just a verb, just a lexical verb. Omar sighed. No, this is sigh. You don't need any other complement, any other object to have a complete meaning. It's not necessary. And this is an intransitive verb. Don't forget it. So here the tree diagram says is like this. The noun phrase, in this case, is a name, Omar, and the verb phrase, in this case, is just the verb, intrans. Don't forget the contraction, intrans, sigh. No object, all right? No object, no complement. It's not necessary, all right? So these are the two types of verbs, transitive, intransitive. Again, transitive with objects. Intransitive, no objects, all right? No objects, no company, no complements after the verb, all right? Now, let's pass to the other one, the transitive. So we have seen transitive, intransitive, the transitive. What would it be the transitive verbs? Do you have an idea? Now that you know the term transitive, remember transitive with object. Intransitive, no object. The transitive, can you guess? Decompose the word, the. This is a prefix, right? The transitive.
Yeah,
What is
double.
the meaning of the?
Double, two.
Yes, I had two, double. Double what? They are
Two
transitive.
objects.
Excellent.
Noun
Got
phrase.
it. So it means that these verbs are gonna take two objects. That's what we call the transitive. Transitive, remember, transitive means with an object. The verb take an object. That's right. Two
Object pronoun. But
objects.
it's not clear.
Here, we are going to
Transitive verb
analyze.
requires two.
Yes, two. Direct and indirect. We have two kinds of objects, direct and indirect. Now we are going to see, don't worry, don't worry. The transitive verbs require two noun phrases, remember? Oh, please, the microphones, don't forget about the microphones. Okay, please don't activate, don't turn it. If you turn it on, please try to turn it off too. All right. So the transitive verbs require two noun phrases. Remember, noun phrases or objects. Yeah, you have these two names. The noun phrase works as an object. So two noun phrases as complements. The classic examples of the transitive verbs are the verbs give, send, and buy. Let's see. William gave Millie some money. Notice here, the verb, what is the verb? Gave, right? You have a noun phrase that is Millie, and then you have a second noun phrase that is some money. Notice you have two objects, Millie and some money. Don't get confused when you say objects. Objects are things. No, 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 no. Yeah, here is not referring specifically to things. An object in a syntactical analysis could be a person, could be a thing, could be a place. Yeah. So don't get confused with the term object, no? Because sometimes object, we make a simile in Spanish, yeah? Object, objeto, cosas. No, 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 no. Object doesn't mean here this, right? Object means is the person, the thing, or the place which receives the action of the subject. Yeah, this is the meaning of object here. It's not a thing specifically. Yeah, it's a thing, but it could be also a person, or people, or places, and so on. All right. So notice here in this sentence we have two objects. Merely, or we have two noun phrases. Remember, noun phrases or objects. We have two objects. In this case, noun phrases. Merely and some money. Another, the staff sent the general a message. Again, we have the verb sent, then we have the general, a noun phrase, an object, and a message, another noun phrase, and another object. So we have two objects. So notice the transitive verbs require two noun phrases or two objects as complements. For example, imagine that I take out some money in the first sentence. I disappear some money, and I just stay with William gave Millie. Does it have a complete sense? William gave Millie, but what? What did William give Millie? Oh, some money. So you need the second object, because with the first object it's not so clear, right? The sense is not so clear. William gave Millie, but William gave Millie what? So you need a second one, a second object, some money, some books, some things, no? So notice that we need these two, all right? These two objects. The second one, the same. The staff sent the general. Sent the general, but what? What did the staff send the general? Oh, a message. So notice here, we need the two to have a complete sense, to have a complete meaning. We have the two objects. So remember, these verbs are called the transitive. Yeah, the transitive verbs are the verbs which require two objects, two noun phrases as a complement. All right. Another one. Max buys his son a laptop. His son is one noun phrase. A laptop is a second noun phrase, a second object. Imagine that I disappear, I take out the second noun phrase, a laptop, and I just stay with the Max buys his son. My buys his son. But what? Buys what? So you need a second object, right? Max buys his son a laptop, Max buys his son a computer, Max buys his son a notebook. So notice that you need these verbs, give, send, and buy. They need two objects to have a complete meaning, right? In order to have a complete meaning, a complete sense, these verbs need two objects, all right? You have two noun phrases, yeah? Don't forget about it. Two noun phrases. All right, so here we are going to continue analyzing these sentences. This is the tree diagram. Notice here, the sentence is William gave Millie some bleach or some money. No, here says some bleach. So here you have William is the noun phrase. The verb, the transitive verb gave in past. Remember, give, it's in past gave. And then you have two noun phrases. No? Two noun phrases. Millie and some bleach or some money. No? Notice this is that tree diagram. All right? So here we're going to analyze this, that Millie is the noun phrase, some money is another noun phrase. And notice what kind of objects. Millie is the indirect object. And some money is the direct object. All right? Notice here the composition. The first one is the indirect object. And the second one is the direct object. The other example. The staff sent the general a message. So you could say the general is the noun phrase. A message is another noun phrase. And again, the general is the indirect object. And the direct object is a message. All right? Notice here, yeah? Now, how can we recognize if Millie is the indirect and someone is the direct? Can you tell me? Do you have an idea? Why is Millie the indirect and the direct is money?
The indirect, the general.
Yeah.
Indirect, yes.
What else? What else? The indirect is the general. Yeah, general. All right. Any other idea? No idea. Can you guess it? Tell me your ideas. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. How can we recognize that Millie is indirect and some money is direct?
Some money receive the action.
That's it. Here, William gave some money. You can write it, right? William gave some money. If you want to be more specific, you add the indirect. To whom? To Millie. But if you notice, William gave some money, you can write this sentence. You don't have any problem. But here you have to add the other one to be more specific. To whom? To Millie. The second one is the same. The staff sent a message. To whom? To the general. And the third one, notice here the third one, Max bought his son a laptop. Indirect, direct. Max bought a laptop. To whom? To his son. And notice here the composition, yeah? Notice here the composition of indirect and direct objects. The indirect object, remember, the indirect object doesn't receive the action. The indirect object receives the action from the direct object, not from the verb, not from the subject, from the direct object, all right? Adding indirect objects of a preposition. I can understand, Luis. What do you mean by adding indirect objects of preposition? What do you mean by that? Luis? No? Yeah. Okay, so don't forget it. Here we are going to place, first the indirect object and then the direct object. This is the normal position, yeah? This is the normal position when we have the two objects. First, indirect, and then the direct object. But, notice here, something important, but, notice now, what did I do? William gave some money to Millie. What did I do? What did I do? It's the same sentence. William gave Millie some money. But now I'm writing, William gave some money to Millie. What did I do? Excellent. We changed the position of the objects. And there is something else. I did something else.
Add the preposition to.
Excellent. That's good. We add the preposition to. So what is the rule? When you want to write first the direct and then the indirect, no, this is now the structure, no? Here we have these noun phrases. First, now I'm writing the direct object. Some money is the direct object. And the second one is the indirect object. So I change, no? I change the order of the objects. First the direct and then the indirect. When you make this change, you need to add a preposition before the indirect object. To Millie. William gave some money to Millie. All right? Don't forget the previous one. William gave Millie some money. No prepositions, right? First the indirect, then the direct. You don't need any prepositions. But when we change the position, first the direct and then the indirect, we need to add an extra word that is the preposition to or maybe for, no? So you could use one of them. The other example. Luis, very good. Oh, Monica, Oh, Luis, your microphone is not working well. All right, all right. So try to send your message by the chat. All right, so here we have the staff sent a message to the general. Notice, again, we have here the verb, the noun phrase, two noun phrases. First, the direct object, then the indirect object. So in this case, again, I'm going to repeat it. We are going to use a preposition. When you change the positions of the objects, first the direct and then the indirect, you need to add a preposition, all right? And the same happens with the other one, right? Max bought a laptop to his son. To his son. Max bought a laptop to his son. Again, we have these two noun phrases, no? We have a direct object and then the indirect object, all right? So don't forget about the composition of these verbs, the transitive verbs. We have two ways to make sentences with these verbs. First, no, the position of the objects here is the difference, no? First, you write the indirect and then the direct, no prepositions between. But when you write first the direct and then the indirect, you need a preposition, all right? You need a preposition before the indirect object. Now, when you write first the direct object and then the indirect object, so you need a preposition, all right? So don't forget about the transitive verbs. Yeah? The transitive verbs are the verbs which take two objects, two noun phrases, all right? Okay, okay, all right, Monica. That's good, all right? So here we have this. Notice, now you have William gave some money to Millie. So William is the noun phrase. The verb phrase is composed by three parts, no? One lexical verb that is gave, remember the name, lexical verb that is gave, and this is the transitive verb, right? Some money, the first noun phrase, and to Millie, notice here. What is the name of the phrase? Prepositional phrase. Now we change the name of the phrase. Two noun phrases, but when you add a preposition, so now it becomes a prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase is composed by a preposition by a noun phrase. That's why we call this PP, no? Prepositional phrase. So you have noun phrase plus a prepositional phrase. Two objects, notice that we have two objects. Some money is the direct, Millie is the indirect. That's why we add the preposition to. And we change that type of phrase. Now it is a prepositional phrase, not just a noun phrase. Inside we have a noun phrase, no? To is the preposition plus the noun phrase or the noun. So you have the prepositional phrase, all right? So this is the tree diagram related to the transitive in the second form, no? Because we have two forms to write this, the transitive verbs. Remember, the most common form is the first one. First, the indirect, then the direct. No prepositions. When you want to change the focus here, the meaning is the same. No, you're just changing the focus, the emphasis. You're emphasizing in some money than to Millie. In the first one, you emphasize on Millie than to money. So the difference is this, the focus, the emphasis, all right? But the meaning is the same. So here you change and you have to add a preposition, all right? Okay, now let's continue with the other one. Here you have a table. Yeah, this is in order to summarize the topic related to the transitive verbs. John sent her an email. Notice no prepositions. First the indirect, then the direct. No? Mike gave his van a scratch. The receptionist showed them the room. We bought Maria a guitar. She told her daughter everything. My friends ordered me a beer. She threw me a bag. So notice the structure. We have the subject, then we have the verb, then we have the indicted object, and finally the direct object. So this is the normal structure with this, the transitive verb. Remember, the transitive verbs. Indicted object, direct object. Now, in the other one, we have inverted, right? So notice here again the table. John sent an email to her. Mike gave a scratch to his van. The receptionist showed the room to them. We bought a guitar to or for Maria. She told everything to her daughter. My friends ordered a beer for me. She threw a bag to me. Notice here that we are going to use a preposition. Remember, when we place first the direct object and then the indirect object, we have to write a preposition between them, right? I mailed to her, a scratch to his van, the room to them, a guitar to for Maria, everything to the daughter, a beer for me, a bag to me. Notice that we have a preposition, please. Don't forget it. A preposition. When you place first the direct object and then the indirect object. All right? So don't forget, we call these verbs, yeah, the transitive verbs. Yeah? Two objects. In simple words, two objects. All right? Now, let's pass to the other one. Now we have another kind of it. Yes.
For me are the same.
I can listen to you so well, please.
To me and for me are the same.
Yeah, in some cases are the same, but there are other situations that for you use it to specify that this is done for you, no? This is done for you. This is just a small difference, right? In some verbs, we use some verbs for example, ask for, listen to. So here you have this kind of difference. And just for, when you use for, it means that it's specifically for you. It's dedicated or devoted or done for you, all right? Yes? All right. So here we have to continue with the other kind of subcategory. Remember, these are subcategories or lexical verbs. We're just talking about lexical verbs. If you can notice, we're not talking about auxiliaries. We're just talking about the first component that are the lexical verbs. So today we're going to talk about this, the lexical verbs. Next class, we're going to talk about the auxiliaries because this is another way of structures. Now, the other subcategory of lexical verbs are intensive verbs. Oh, teacher, transitive, the transitive, intransitive. They have a relationship, no? Because all of them have the word transitive. But what about this? Intensive. What do you mean by intensive verbs? Do you have any idea? Can you guess what it means? Intensive verbs. No? No idea? No guessings? No words? All right. You can notice and you are going to realize that this is so simple. Maybe the name is not so known, it's not so popular. No, we don't manage these names, these technical names, no? But the verbs are so simple. Notice here, intensive verbs. We use intensive verbs to describe the subject. Yeah, notice we have talked about it at the beginning of the class. We talked about these verbs. Remember, we have action verbs and at the beginning we talked about it. We have action verbs and
Noun phrases.
noun phrases is the object, the complement. But the verb, we're talking about the verbs. When we saw the definition of verbs, we saw two kinds of verbs. Action verbs like singing, playing, walking, but there were other verbs.
Lexical verbs.
No, all of them are lexical. All of them are lexical. We have different subcategories.
Non-action verbs.
Non-action verbs.
All right, non-action, or they have other name.
Complement.
Yeah, they have a complement. Yeah, we're talking about the verb.
Stative.
Stay verbs, that's it, or linking. Remember, we have action verbs and linking verbs. So these intensive verbs are the linking verbs because we use these verbs to describe the subject. So they are going to have the function of a link, of a connector. Notice here. Intensive verbs are also called copular verbs, so copulative verbs. In Spanish, we have this also too, no? Copular verbs, verbos copulativos. So these verbs help us to describe the subject, all right? Copular verbs. The words or phrases after the verb work as the subject complement or predicative. Yeah, don't forget about this term. Subject complement is not a verb complement. Transitive and the transitive, we have verb complements. For example, no, William gave Millie some money. Millie and some money are complements of the verb, right? Yes? Millie and some money are complements of the verb. Now these verbs are going to work as a link between the subject and the other complement. That's why we have this as a subject complement. They are not verb complements, they are subject complements or predicatives. This means they apply to the subject, not the verb. Notice here, they apply to the subject, not the verb. So the complement that you have after this verb apply not to the verb, to the subject. And then with the example, we are going to clarify. They are usually followed by a noun, adjective, or a prepositional phrase. So they are followed by a noun phrase, adjective phrase, or a prepositional phrase. Notice here the three components. Transitive and the transitive are followed just by noun phrases. And notice the difference. The transitive verbs and the transitive verbs are followed just by noun phrases. These verbs are followed by noun phrases, adjective phrases, and prepositional phrases. Let's see here. Notice this sentence. It's simple, right? It's not a complex sentence. It's a very simple sentence using the most basic verb, the verb be, in the form is. It is rather extravagant. Is the intensive verb. Notice here, the verb be is an intensive verb, and it's followed by an adjective phrase. This is an adjective, right? Extravagant is an adjective. Rather is an adverb. It's intensifying. No, it's intensifying the adjective. So this is an adjective phrase. Yeah? Notice the verb be, that is the intensive verb, is followed by an adjective phrase. And as we have seen, this complement or this adjective phrase is talking about it. Is talking about the subject. You are describing the subject. How is it? Or what is it like? Extravagant. Rather extravagant. So notice that way here says is the subject complement, because you are giving information about the subject. But what is the link? What is the connector? Because it's not possible to say it rather extravagant, no? It's not possible to do that, right? It rather extravagant, no, I need something else. So what do we use? The verb be. It is rather extravagant. This is a copulate verb, remember, copulate verb. Copulate verbs give information, yeah, about the subject. We call them subject complement. Rather extravagant, that is an adjective phrase, is the complement of the subject because we are giving information about the subject, not about the verb. We're not talking about the verb. We're talking about the subject. And that's why this is an intensive verb. Another example. Sigmund was an auctioneer. An auctioneer. No? Sigmund was an auctioneer. Again, notice here the verb be, that is the intensive verb in past. No? You have in past this verb. And auctioneer now is a noun phrase. Notice, this is a noun phrase. But this noun phrase is not talking about the verb. This noun phrase is talking about the subject. Oh, Simon, who is Simon? Oh, the auctioneer. You are describing Sigmund. Oh, Sigmund. You are describing Sigmund. So the verb was is just a linker. It's just a connector, because it's not possible to say Sigmund an auctioneer. No, you can do that, right? So the verb was is just a link. That's why we say these kind of verbs also linking verbs. Apart from being intensive verbs, they are also called linking verbs because the function of these verbs just as a link, no more. It's connecting the subject with some information about the subject. That's all. Another example. Oscar and the first mate were in the engine room. Again, you have the verb be in past, no? This is the verb be in past, where is the intensive verb. Notice, this is the intensive verb, and it's followed now by a prepositional phrase. Yeah? Prepositional phrase. Notice, as I told you, no? Remember, the intensive verbs are followed by a noun phrase, adjective phrase, or a prepositional phrase. And again, notice here again that here is talking about the subject. Here is indicating the position, the placement. No? Where are they? Oh, they are in the engine room. So you are giving some information about the subject. You're not talking about the verb. The verb is just the link. the connection between these two parts, all right? Yeah, yes. All of these are simple sentences because you have a subject, verb, and a complement. This is just simple sentences. They are not complex. We're not talking about a complex sentence, just simple ones. All right? But we divide the verbs. We're talking about the verbs, lexical verbs. Remember, all of these types are related to lexical verbs. Yeah, all of these verbs are lexical, but we subcategorize, no? We reclassify them into transitive, lexical intransitive, lexical detransitive, and lexical intensive. All of them are lexical. I didn't change the lexical ones because remember, a verb phrase is composed by auxiliary verbs and lexical verbs. So today we are focusing just on the lexical verbs. Next class, we're going to talk about the auxiliary verbs. Yeah? So here we have different kinds of lexical verbs. So the intensive ones, yeah, the intensive verbs, if you see, you know the verb be, right? You know the verb be, but we don't know how to call it in a syntactic analysis, no? The term that we use when we analyze the verbs, when we classify verbs, no? So don't forget. But the verb is not just the only one. We have other intensive verbs like become, seem, appear, turn, remain, look, taste, feel, smell, and sound. Look at the examples. The stew smells good. Notice here, good is qualifying the stew. All right? Good is qualifying the stew. Smells is just a connector between good and the stew. Another example. The milk turned sour. Turn, here is again a connector. Sour is an adjective. The adjective qualifies nouns, not verbs. Nouns, and the noun is the subject. So sour is related to milk. And turn is just a connector, the link. Another, the night grew dark. Again, grew, no? Grew, again, is the link. Dark, oh yeah, the night was dark. All right, so instead of say was dark, you say grew dark. So it's getting darker, no? Now, she became a writer. Who became a writer? She, the girl. And notice here you're qualifying, you're giving information about the subject. Who is she? A writer. And notice, these are the intensive verbs. Don't forget about the names. Intensive verbs. So intensive verbs are going to be followed by a noun phrase, prepositional phrase, or adjective phrase. And they just serve as a connector, as a link between the subject and the complement. That's why we call them subject complement or predicative. Remember this name? Predicative, all right? Not predicate, predicative, all right? All right, so here we have to pass to the next one. And here you have the diagram. Ooh, the time, no. The subject, here you have Sigmund, is the noun phrase. Then we have the verb phrase. Was is the intensive verb. And the noun phrase and auctioneer. Yeah, notice how we are going to decompose these sentences into the three diagrams, all right? A ver, creo que el tiempo nos está ganando. Creo que de ahí esta plataforma la utilizan para otro curso, algo así me dijeron. Vamos a tener que dejarlo aquí. Discúlpenme bien las molestias por esta conexión de internet que hemos tenido, ¿ya? La siguiente clase estaríamos terminando esta partecita. No solamente nos faltan estos dos tipos de verbos, que es el complex transitive y el prepositional. Solamente nos estarían faltando estos dos, ¿ya? Entonces, porque esto va a tomar un poquito más de tiempo, no vamos a abarcar más y no va a alcanzar para lo que nos está puesto ahí dentro de la plataforma, ¿ya? Entonces, nos vamos a quedar aquí, ¿ya? Espero que hayan podido captar la siguiente clase. Si de repente no han podido captar algo muy bien, me preguntan, ¿ya? No tengan temor o duda de preguntar, es muy importante eso para clarificar las ideas. Algunos de ustedes lo han hecho muy bien, pero el resto también, no tengan miedo, no tengan temor, pregunten, para eso estamos, ¿ok? So, I'm so sorry about the interruption because of the internet connection, so that's gonna be all for today. So we're gonna have the next class, the next section related to this topic too. And the next class, we're going to talk about also the auxiliary verbs. Remember that we have two parts of the verb phrases, no? The lexical, this is the topic of today. And the next class, we are going to finish this part and we have to continue talking about with the auxiliary verbs, all right?
Okay.
Okay, so it was a pleasure to hear you again. Some of you I can see, but the other ones no. So take care a lot. See you next week at the same time. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks
teacher.
so
Thank
much.
you for
See you
everything.
on Saturday.
Bye,
See you
teacher.
on Saturday. Bye-bye.
Next week.
Bye bye, teacher.